My name is Maya Chen, and for 28 years, I lived inside a cage I built with my own two hands. The bars were made of perfectionism, control, and the desperate need to never, ever appear vulnerable. I was a corporate attorney at one of Manhattan's most prestigious firms, and I wore my armor well-tailored suits. Perfect posture, words chosen like weapons in a courtroom. I dated men because that's what the trajectory of my life demanded. My parents had immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but ambition and expectations. I was their American dream, and that dream didn't include complications. It didn't include the way my heart would skip when certain women walked by, the way I'd lose my train of thought when my female opposing counsel would lean across the conference table during settlement negotiations. I told myself it was admiration, professional respect, nothing more than I met Sloan Edwards, and every lie I'd told myself began to crumble. It was a Thursday in October when she walked into my firm for her interview. I wasn't supposed to be part of the hiring process. I was too busy with the Morrison case, a corporate merger worth $300 million, but our senior partner, Richard, had asked me to sit in because they were looking for someone to eventually join my team. I was reviewing notes on my laptop when she entered the conference room, and I heard her before I saw her. Her laugh, rich and unrestrained, floated in from the hallway. Someone had clearly made a joke, and she wasn't performing politeness. She was genuinely amused. When she walked through the door, I looked up, and time did that thing I'd only read about in novels. It stretched and compressed simultaneously. She was tall, maybe 5'10", with auburn hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. She wore a charcoal suit that somehow looked both professional and effortlessly cool, and her green eyes scanned the room with an openness that made me immediately want to hide. "Sloan Edwards," she said, extending her hand to Richard first, then making her way around the table. When she reached me, her hand enveloped mine, warm, confident, her grip firm but not aggressive. "You must be Maya Chen. I've read about the Morrison case. Brilliant strategy with the intellectual property clause." I withdrew my hand too quickly. "Thank you. Just doing my job." Her smile suggested she'd noticed my awkwardness, but she graciously moved on. The interview lasted 45 minutes. Sloan was impressive. Harvard law clerked for a federal judge, experience in both corporate law and litigation. But what struck me most was how she answered Richard's question about her greatest weakness. "I care too much," she said, and before Richard could dismiss it as a cliché answer, she continued, "I know that sounds like interview speak, but it's true. I get invested in my clients, in my cases. I've been told I should maintain more emotional distance. But I think the law should serve people, not just protect corporate interests. That philosophy has sometimes put me at odds with more traditional firms." Richard shifted uncomfortably. Our firm was the definition of traditional, but I found myself leaning forward. "And if a case required you to prioritize corporate interests over individual impact," she met my eyes directly, "then I'd do my job exceptionally well while actively working to change the system that created that conflict. I can operate within reality while still believing we should improve it." I should have found that answer naive. Instead, I felt something crack in my chest. We hired her 3 days later. Sloan started in November, and I told myself I was just being a good colleague when I volunteered to mentor her. Richard was pleased. He saw it as me taking initiative in building the team. He didn't see the way my pulse raced when I scheduled our weekly check-in meetings. For the first month, I maintained my professional distance. We met in my office every Monday at 10 a.m. I reviewed her work, provided feedback, shared insights about firm politics. She was a quick study, absorbing everything while also pushing back when she disagreed. I'd never had someone challenge me so respectfully, so thoughtfully. Our conversations began extending past the scheduled 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. Topics drifted from work to books we were reading, restaurants we'd tried, neighborhoods in the city. I learned she'd grown up in Portland, Oregon, came out when she was 16, and her family had been details she mentioned casually that made me simultaneously envious and terrified. "You're lucky," I said one Monday in early December. "Having that kind of acceptance." She studied me with those perceptive green eyes. "Are you out, Maya?" The question hung in the air between us. I could have deflected, changed the subject, hidden behind professional boundaries. Instead, I heard myself say, "I'm not. I don't." "It's okay," she said softly. "You don't have to explain anything, Tom." But I wanted to explain. For the first time in my life, I wanted to tear down the walls and let someone see me. The realization was terrifying. I've never allowed myself to explore that part of who I might be. I finally said, my family, my career, the trajectory I've built it, doesn't leave room for complications. And being gay would be a complication. The word hung there. Gay. I'd never applied it to myself, never let it take shape in my mind as something I could be. Wouldn't it? I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Sloan leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. Maya, I think the real complication is living a life that isn't yours. That's the thing that will eventually destroy you, not coming out, not facing family disappointment, but looking back at 60 and realizing you spent your entire life performing for an audience that was never going to be satisfied anyway. Her words struck something deep in me, a truth I'd been running from for 28 years. I don't know how to be anything other than what I am, I whispered. Maybe you're already being exactly what you are, she said. Maybe you just haven't admitted it yet. The Morrison case settled in mid-December, which meant the firm threw its annual celebration dinner. It was held at a steakhouse in Midtown, the kind of place with leather booths and dim lighting where corporate deals were sealed and careers were made. I arrived alone, as always. I'd broken up with my boyfriend, James, a month earlier, relationship that had been more strategic partnership than romance. He was a consultant at McKinsey, the kind of man my parents approved of. When I ended things, he'd seemed more annoyed by the inconvenience than heartbroken. The dinner was the usual affair: too much wine, too much talk about billable hours and client development. I was seated between Richard and one of our senior associates, making appropriate conversation while my mind wandered. Then Sloan arrived. She wore a black dress that somehow managed to be elegant and slightly rebellious at the same time, something in the cut, the way it moved when she walked. Her hair was down, and she'd lined her eyes in a way that made the green even more striking. I forgot to breathe for a moment. She made her way around the room, greeting colleagues, and when she reached our section of the table, she smiled at me with a warmth that felt conspiratorial, like we shared a secret no one else knew. Congratulations on the Morrison settlement, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Richard said you were brilliant in the final negotiation. I had a good team, I deflected, but my voice sounded strange to my own ears. The dinner progressed, and I found myself hyper-aware of Sloane's presence. The way she laughed at Richard's terrible jokes while catching my eye, as if to say, "Can you believe this?" The way she defended the newest associate when one of the partners made a dismissive comment about his work. The way she existed so comfortably in her own skin, while I felt like I was constantly adjusting my mask. After dinner, people migrated to the bar for more drinks. I usually left early, maintaining my image as the dedicated attorney who'd rather work than socialize. But when Sloan said she was staying for one drink, I found myself ordering a whiskey neat. We ended up in a corner booth, somehow separated from the rest of the firm. The bar was crowded and loud, which meant we had to lean close to hear each other. "Can I ask you something?" Sloan said, her voice low. "Of course. Why do you work so hard to make everyone believe you don't feel anything?" The question was so direct, so perceptive, that I almost stood up and left. But the whiskey had warmed me, and I was tired, so tired of performing. "Because feeling things is dangerous," I said. "Feelings make you vulnerable. They make you weak, or they make you human. In a corporate law firm, being human is a liability." She shook her head. "That's what they want you to believe. But the best attorneys I've ever worked with are the ones who care deeply. They just channel it differently." "Is that what you do?" "I try." She paused, taking a sip of her wine. "Maya, can I tell you what I see when I look at you?" Every instinct screamed at me to deflect, to make a joke, to rebuild the walls, but I nodded. "I see someone brilliant and capable and absolutely terrified of her own power. Not her power in the courtroom, you know you're good at that. I mean your power as a person. Your ability to feel, to want, to choose something just because it makes you happy, rather than because it fits into some predetermined plan." "You don't know me," I said, but the words lacked conviction. "Maybe not, but I see you. And I think that scares you more than anything." She was right. Being truly seen was the most terrifying thing I could imagine. "What if what I want," I started, then stopped, unsure how to finish the sentence. "What if what you want doesn't fit the plan?" She finished for me. "Then, maybe it's time for a new plan." Our eyes locked, and in that moment, something shifted. The air between us felt charged, electric. I could see the pulse jumping in her throat, could feel my own heart racing. Sloan, I don't, she said softly. Don't say anything you'll regret tomorrow. Just sit with it. Sit with the possibility that you deserve to be happy, even if happiness looks different than you imagined. We stayed at that bar until it closed, talking about everything and nothing. And when we finally left, stepping out into the cold December night, she hugged me goodbye, a simple gesture that felt like permission to want more. The holidays were torture. I went home to California, spent a week with my parents in their immaculate house in Palo Alto, and listened to my mother ask pointed questions about why James and I had broken up. He was a good match for you, she said over dinner one night. Stable, from a good family. You're 28, Maya. You should be thinking about your future. I am thinking about my future, I said. Then, why did you let him go? Because I didn't love him. Because when he touched me, I felt nothing. Because every time I closed my eyes, I saw auburn hair and green eyes, and a smile that made me forget my own name. But I didn't say any of that. I just said I was focused on my career, and my mother sighed in that way that conveyed both disappointment and resignation. I texted Sloan on Christmas Eve, just something simple. Hope you're having a good holiday. She responded immediately, it'd be better if I was there. Miss our Monday meetings. I stared at those words for a long time. Miss our Monday meetings. Such an innocent sentence that felt loaded with meaning. Me too, I wrote back. Maya, when you get back, can we talk? Not at the office, somewhere private. My hands shook as I typed, yes. I flew back to New York 2 days after Christmas, and we met on December 28th at her apartment in Brooklyn. She'd given me her address, said she'd make dinner, insisted it was casual. Nothing about how I felt was casual. I stood outside her brownstone building for 5 minutes before finally pressing her buzzer. When she answered the door, she was wearing jeans and a soft sweater, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and she looked more beautiful than I'd ever seen her. Come in, she said, and her smile was gentle, understanding. Her apartment was exactly what I'd imagined, books everywhere, art on the walls, a record player in the corner currently spinning something jazz and mellow. It felt lived in, loved, real. Wine, she offered, please. We started with small talk, moved to dinner, pasta she'd made from scratch, which impressed me more than it probably should have. But the real conversation didn't start until we'd finished eating and moved to her couch, wine glasses in hand. Maya, I need to be honest with you about something, she said. My heart was hammering. Okay, I like you. Not as a colleague, not as a friend, though you're both of those things. But I like you in a way that's probably inappropriate, given that we work together. And I've been trying to respect your boundaries, to give you space to figure out what you want. But I also think you deserve to know the truth, because maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. But you should get to decide with all the information. I set down my wine glass because my hands were shaking too badly to hold it. Sloan, you don't have to say anything, she interrupted. I'm not asking you for anything. I just needed you to know. Because I think you've spent your whole life not knowing that you're allowed to be wanted exactly as you are. I'm scared, I admitted. And the words came out as barely a whisper. Of what? Of wanting this. Of wanting you. Of what it means about who I am. About the life I've built. About disappointing everyone who matters to me. She moved closer on the couch, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something warm and slightly spicy. Can I ask you something? And I want you to really think about the answer. I nodded. When you imagine your life 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you imagine being truly, bone-deep happy, what does that look like? Not what your parents want, not what looks good on paper. What does your happiness actually look like? I closed my eyes, and for the first time in my life, I let myself see it clearly. Not the corner office, not the partner track, not the approved husband and the perfect wedding. I saw Sunday mornings in a sun-filled apartment. I saw laughter and books, and someone who knew me, really knew me. I saw auburn hair spread across a pillow, and green eyes opening in the morning light. I saw her. You, I whispered. It looks like you. When I opened my eyes, Sloan was looking at me with an expression so tender it made my chest ache. Then, maybe it's time to stop fighting it, she said softly. I don't know how to do this. I've never. We'll figure it out together. There's no timeline, no rules. We take it one step at a time. What if I'm terrible at it? What if I panic? What if she reached out and took my hand, and the simple touch sent electricity through my entire body? Then you panic, and we deal with it, Maya. I'm not asking you to have everything figured out. I'm just asking you to be brave enough to try. I looked down at our hands, hers, tan and elegant, mine smaller, trembling slightly. I've never wanted anything as much as I want this, I said, and that terrifies me. Good, she said, and there was that smile again, the one that made me forget my own name. If it doesn't scare you, it doesn't matter enough. So what happens now? Now, you tell me what you need. We can sit here and talk all night. I can take you home. I can kiss you. Whatever you need, we do that. The word kiss hung in the air between us, and suddenly that was all I could think about. I'd kissed men before, dutiful kisses, performative kisses, kisses that felt like checking a box on a list. Buted, never been kissed by someone I actually wanted, someone who made my entire body feel alive. I want you to kiss me, I said, and my voice only shook a little. But I need you to know I might be terrible at this. She laughed, that beautiful, unrestrained laugh I'd fallen for in the conference room months ago. I seriously doubt that, but even if you are, we'll practice until you get better. She moved closer, slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull back. But I didn't want to pull back. I wanted to lean in, to fall, to finally stop fighting gravity. When her lips touched mine, the world went quiet. Everything I'd been so afraid of, the judgment, the uncertainty, the loss of control, all of it disappeared. There was only this, her mouth soft and sure against mine, her hand cupping my face, the way my entire body seemed to light up from the inside. She kissed me slowly, thoroughly, like we had all the time in the world. And when she finally pulled back, I was breathing hard, my heart racing. Okay, she asked. I think I need you to do that again. She smiled. I can do that. This time when she kissed me, I kissed her back less carefully, less controlled. My hands found her hair, and she made a small sound of approval that sent heat pooling low in my stomach. We kissed until I lost track of time, until I forgot to be afraid, until I felt more alive than I'd ever felt in my entire carefully constructed life. When we finally broke apart, I was half in her lap, my professional persona completely demolished. I can't believe I waited 28 years for that, I said, still trying to catch my breath. Well, we have a lot of time to make up for, she said, and there was something heated in her eyes that made me shiver. But Maya, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about physical attraction. I don't just want to sleep with you, though, for the record. I very much want to do that eventually. I want all of you. The brilliant attorney, the scared woman trying to figure herself out, the person who pretends not to care, but feels everything so deeply it overwhelms her. I want to know all of your pieces. What if some of those pieces are broken? Then we'll work with them anyway. You don't have to be perfect to be lovable. The word lovable hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent my entire life trying to be perfect daughter, perfect student, perfect attorney. It had never occurred to me that I could be lovable just as I was, flaws and fears and all. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. The relationship part, the being vulnerable part, the letting someone see me part. Then let me teach you, she said, not because I'm some expert, but because I think you deserve to experience what it's like when someone sees all of you and doesn't run away. And if I'm difficult, I like difficult. Difficult means interesting. I laughed despite myself. You might regret saying that. Let me worry about my regrets, she said. Right now, I want you to worry about what you need. Do you want to stay? Do you want to go home and process? Do you want to make out on my couch until the sun comes up? All of those options are completely valid. I looked around her apartment, the books, the art, the record player still spinning. I looked at her, patient, accepting, willing to let me set the pace, and I realized I was tired of running, tired of controlling, tired of being afraid. I want to stay, I said. Not for, I'm not ready for, I know, she said gently. We can just lie here and talk, or watch a movie, or make out some more. Whatever feels right. So we stayed on her couch, tangled up in each other, kissing and talking and laughing. She told me about coming out in high school, about the girlfriend she'd had in law school, who wanted her to be less passionate about her work. I told her about my parents, about the pressure to be perfect, about how I'd been so focused on checking boxes that I'd forgotten to actually live. Can I tell you a secret? I said sometime around midnight. Always. I used to look at women and tell myself I was just admiring their fashion sense or their confidence. But I was lying. I was always attracted to women. I just never let myself acknowledge it. And how does it feel to acknowledge it now? I thought about the question, really considered it. Terrifying, liberating, like I finally understand something that's been confusing me for years. That's how it should feel, she said. Change is always scary, but the right kind of change feels like freedom. At 2 a.m., I finally admitted I should probably go home. I had work in the morning, and I needed to process everything that had happened. But when Sloan walked me to her door, I found myself reluctant to leave. Can I see you tomorrow? I asked. You'll see me at work. You know what I mean. She smiled. Yes, you can see me tomorrow. And the day after that, and the day after that, if you want. I want, I said, and kissed her one more time before forcing myself to leave. In the Uber home, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. My hair was messed up, my lipstick smudged, my careful mask completely gone, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I looked happy. Going to work the next day was surreal. I'd spent the entire night lying in bed, replaying every moment with Sloan, touching my lips and remembering how she'd kissed me. I'd texted her at 6 a.m., "Thank you for last night." She'd responded immediately, "Thank you for being brave." But walking into the office, I felt exposed, like everyone could see that something fundamental had shifted. Richard greeted me in the hallway with his usual nod, and I was paranoid he could somehow tell. I'd spent half the night making out with another woman on her couch. I made it to my office and closed the door. Taking a deep breath, I had meetings all day, had to review contracts for a new client, had to pretend everything was normal when nothing felt normal anymore. At 10 a.m., our usual meeting time, Sloan knocked on my door. "Come in," I said, and my voice sounded relatively steady. She entered and closed the door behind her, and for a moment we just looked at each other. She was back in her professional armored-tailored suit, hair pulled back, the picture of competence, but I could see the question in her eyes. "Are we okay? Did you panic? Do you regret it?" "Hi," I said. "Hi," she replied. "So, I have a question about the Brighton contract. We were doing this. We were going to be professional, keep work separate, pretend the world hadn't shifted on its axis. What's your question?" I asked. "The indemnification clause in Section 12 seems overly broad. I think we could negotiate better terms." We spent 30 minutes discussing the contract, and to anyone listening, it would have sounded like a completely normal mentoring session. But underneath it all, I was hyper-aware of her presence, the way she gestured when making a point, the curve of her smile when I praised her analysis, the way her eyes would meet mine and hold for just a beat too long. When our meeting ended, she stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Maya." "Yes, dinner tonight, my place." "Yes," I said, not even hesitating. That became our pattern. Professional during the day, us in the evening. We'd meet at her apartment or occasionally go out to restaurants in neighborhoods where we were unlikely to run into colleagues. We'd talk for hours, kiss until I was dizzy, and then I'd go home still not ready for more, but getting closer each time. 2 weeks after that first kiss, my mother called. "Maya, your father and I have been talking. We think you should come home for a weekend. We want to introduce you to someone." My stomach dropped. "Mom, I'm not interested in. He's the son of the Lees. You remember them. His name is David. He's a doctor at Stanford Medical. Very successful. Your father plays golf with his father. I'm not looking to date anyone right now. You're 28. You can't wait forever." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar pressure building. This was the moment. I could keep lying, keep pretending, keep living the life they wanted for me, or I could tell the truth and deal with the consequences. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I'm seeing someone, and she's a woman." The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. "Mom, this is a joke." Her voice was cold. "It's not a joke. I'm gay, Mom. I think I always have been. I just wasn't ready to admit it. This is that city, that job. They've confused you. You need to come home, see your family, remember who you are." "I know exactly who I am. I'm just finally being honest about it. Your father will be devastated. After everything we've sacrificed for you, this is how you repay us." The words hit like physical blows, but underneath the pain, I felt something else. Freedom. I was done performing. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "but this is my life, and I'm going to live it honestly. I hope eventually you'll be able to accept that. If you pursue this, you're making a choice. You understand that." "I understand," I said, "and I'm making it." She hung up. I sat in my office, staring at my phone, feeling like I might throw up. Then I texted Sloan, "Can you come to my office?" She was there in 2 minutes. "What's wrong?" she asked, closing the door. "I just came out to my mother. She said I was choosing this lifestyle over my family." Sloan sat down across from me, her expression compassionate but not pitying. "How do you feel?" "Terrified, guilty, free." I laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "Is that normal?" "Completely normal, Maya. This is huge. You just did one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do." She's so disappointed in me. That's her issue to work through, not yours. You can't live your life trying to manage other people's expectations. What if she never comes around? What if I just destroyed my relationship with my parents for what? Sloane's voice was sharp. For yourself, for your own happiness. Maya, if your parents love you, they'll eventually understand, and if they don't, then you'll have to decide whether you want to live authentically or live for their approval. But you can't do both. She was right. I knew she was right. "Will you come over tonight?" I asked. "I don't want to be alone." "Of course," she said. "Whatever you need." That night at my apartment, the first time Sloan had been there, I fell apart. All the years of holding myself together, of maintaining control, of being perfect, it all crumbled. I cried in a way I hadn't cried since I was a child, and Sloan held me through all of it. "I'm sorry," I kept saying. "I'm such a mess." "You're human," she said. "You're allowed to be a mess." We ordered Thai food and ate on my couch, and slowly I began to feel more grounded. Sloan told me about her own coming out experience, how her parents had been supportive, but it still took time to adjust. "They'll come around," she said, "or they won't. But either way, you're going to be okay. You're stronger than you think." I don't feel strong right now. Strength isn't about never breaking down, it's about breaking down and then getting back up anyway. Later, as we were cleaning up the takeout containers, I found myself watching her move around my kitchen like she belonged there, and I realized something. I wanted this, not just tonight, but every night. I wanted her in my space, in my life, in every part of my carefully constructed world. "Stay," I said. She turned to look at me. "I was planning to no, I mean stay. Don't go home. Stay here with me tonight." Understanding flickered in her eyes. "Are you sure? Today has been. You don't have to, I'm sure," I said, and I've spent my whole life waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances, but I'm tired of waiting. I want this. I want you. She crossed the kitchen and kissed me, soft and slow. "Okay? But we go at your pace. Whatever happens or doesn't happen, it's all okay." We moved to my bedroom, and I was nervous in a way I'd never been before. Every other sexual experience I'd had felt performative, like I was following a script. This felt different. This felt real. Sloan was patient, gentle, checking in with me constantly. She made me feel beautiful in a way I'd never felt before. Not beautiful because I was perfect, but beautiful because she saw all of me and wanted all of me anyway. When she touched me, really touched me for the first time, I thought I might dissolve. Every nerve ending felt alive, electric. She knew exactly how to read my body, to push me just far enough without overwhelming me. "You're doing so good," she whispered at one point, and the praise made something inside me crack open. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted. "That's okay. Just feel, just be present." So I surrendered. I stopped trying to control the experience, stopped performing, stopped thinking. I just felt her hands on my skin, her mouth on mine, the way my body responded to her touch like it had been waiting for this my entire life. Afterward, lying tangled in my sheets with her, I felt more vulnerable than I'd ever felt. Not because I was naked, but because she'd seen me lose control, seen me completely undone. "Thank you," I whispered. "For what? For being patient with me, for seeing me, for making me feel like it's okay to want things." She kissed my shoulder. "You don't have to thank me for that. Maya, you've been so focused on being what everyone else needed you to be. I think you forgot that you're allowed to just exist, to take up space, to want things for yourself. I've never been good at wanting things." "Then I'll teach you," she said. "Lesson 1. You're allowed to want me. You're allowed to want this. You're allowed to be happy, even if it doesn't look like what you planned." I turned to face her. "What if I want more than this? What if I want everything? Then we'll figure out what everything looks like," she said, "together." Over the next few weeks, we settled into a rhythm. At work, we were professional, collegial, but not obviously intimate. Outside of work, we were us. We spent most nights together, alternating between her apartment and mine. She introduced me to her friends, and I was nervous, but they welcomed me without judgment. "You're making her happy," her best friend Sarah said when Sloan stepped away to get drinks. "We haven't seen her this lit up in years." "She makes me happy too," I admitted. "Good. Just so you know, if you hurt her, I know 3 different ways to make someone's professional life miserable." I laughed, appreciating the loyalty even as I understood the warning. But we couldn't hide at work forever. Eventually, people started to notice. It started small. A junior associate commented that Sloan and I seemed close. Then Richard mentioned that we left the office around the same time most evenings. Nothing accusatory, just observational. Sloan and I talked about what to do. We weren't violating any firm policies. We weren't in a direct reporting relationship anymore since she'd been moved to a different team. But it still felt risky. "We could just tell people," Sloan suggested one night in February. "We're not doing anything wrong." "I know," I said, "but I'm not ready for everyone at work to know. I'm still figuring this out." "Okay," she said, though I could see the disappointment in her eyes. "We'll wait until you're ready." But the waiting was killing me. I was tired of compartmentalizing, tired of hiding, tired of pretending Sloan was just my colleague when she was so much more. The breaking point came in March, at a firm event. It was someone's birthday. Can't even remember whose aunt. We'd all gone out to a bar after work. I was standing with a group of associates, nursing a gin and tonic, when one of the guys, Brad, a second year who thought he was God's gift to women, made a comment. "Sloan's hot. Think she's single." Something primal rose in me, something possessive and fierce. "She's taken," I said, my voice sharp. "How do you know?" "Because she's with me." The words were out before I could stop them. The group went silent, and I felt panic start to rise. But then I looked across the bar and saw Sloan watching me, and something in her expression, pride, love, encouragement, gave me courage. "Sloan and I are together," I said more firmly. "Have been for a few months." Brad looked stunned. You're gay." "Yes," I said, and the word felt powerful coming out of my mouth. "I am." The conversation moved on quickly after that, people asking questions, some supportive, some awkwardly changing the subject. But Sloan crossed the bar to me, and when she reached me, she didn't hide. She put her hand on my lower back, a clear gesture of intimacy. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. "I'm really okay." Richard pulled me aside later that evening. I braced myself for a lecture about professionalism or firm image. "Maya, I just want to make sure you and Sloan have reviewed the firm's relationship policies. As long as there's no direct reporting relationship and no conflict of interest, the firm doesn't have an issue with workplace relationships." "We've reviewed them," I said carefully. He nodded. "Good. And for what it's worth, I think it's about time you let yourself be happy. You've been wound so tight for years. It's nice to see you actually smile." I was so surprised I didn't know what to say. "I'm not as oblivious as you might think," he continued. "I've known you were going through something. I'm glad you figured it out." After Richard walked away, I felt lighter than I'd felt in months. The secret was out, and the world hadn't ended. People knew, and most of them didn't care. The ones who did care, well, that was their problem, not mine. But coming out at work didn't magically solve everything. My parents still weren't speaking to me. My mother had sent exactly 2 text messages in the months since our phone call, one reminding me about my grandmother's birthday, and one asking when I'd come to my senses. I'd tried calling several times, but my father wouldn't answer, and my mother would only speak in clipped, formal tones before making an excuse to hang up. It hurt. God, it hurt. But Sloan was there through all of it, holding me when I cried, reminding me that their rejection didn't define my worth. "They'll come around eventually," she'd say. "And if they don't, you'll build your own family." What if I'm not strong enough to do that? You are. I've seen your strength, Maya. You just spent 28 years hiding who you were because you were terrified of disappointing them. That took incredible strength. Now you're using that same strength to live authentically. That's not weakness, that's courage. But in April, we had our first real fight. It started over something small. It made plans for us to have dinner with some of her friends without asking her first. She came home from work to find me already getting ready, and I could see the frustration in her face. "Maya, I'm exhausted. I had 3 depositions today and I really just wanted a quiet night in." "I know, but I already told them we'd come. We can leave early. You could have asked me first." I didn't think it was a big deal. "That's the problem," she said, her voice tight. "You didn't think. You just made a decision for both of us." I was trying to be social. You're always saying I need to be more engaged with your friends. Being engaged doesn't mean committing us to things without discussion. I'm not your accessory, Maya. I'm your partner. That means you actually have to include me in decisions. Her words stung because they were true. I'd spent so long making all my own decisions, controlling every aspect of my life, that I'd forgotten relationships required collaboration. You're right, I said. I'm sorry, I should have asked. This isn't the first time. Last week you canceled our weekend plans to work on a case without even mentioning it to me until the last minute. The week before that, you invited your colleague to join us for dinner without checking with me first. I didn't realize. That's exactly it. You don't realize. You're so used to operating independently that you forget there's someone else in this relationship who gets a say in how we spend our time. So what do you want me to do? I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. Should I ask your permission for everything? Don't be reductive. I'm asking you to consider me, to think about us as a unit rather than just you making decisions and expecting me to go along with them. I'm trying, Sloan. This is all new to me. I've never had to consider someone else before. I know, she said, and her voice softened slightly. But trying means actually making changes, not just apologizing and then doing the same thing again. We canceled the dinner plans. We spent the evening in tense silence, both of us processing. Finally, around 10 p.m., I broke. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. The relationship thing, the compromise thing. I'm used to being in control, and now I feel like I'm constantly failing. She came and sat next to me on the couch. You're not failing, you're learning. But Maya, you need to understand something. Control isn't love. You can't orchestrate and manage a relationship the way you handle a legal case. You have to surrender some of that control and trust that we'll figure things out together. What if I can't? What if I'm too damaged from years of trying to be perfect? Then we'll work through it. But you have to actually work, not just apologize and then revert to old patterns. That's not fair to either of us. Tell me what you need, I said. I need you to see me as a partner, not a variable to manage. I need you to ask instead of assume. I need you to be willing to compromise, even when it's uncomfortable. And I need you to trust that I'm not going to leave just because we disagree sometimes. I'm afraid you will leave, I whispered. Everyone else has. Your parents' conditional love is not the standard for all relationships. I'm not going anywhere, but that doesn't mean I'm going to accept being treated like I don't get a say in my own life. We talked for hours that night, really talked. I admitted how afraid I was of being vulnerable, of needing someone, of the possibility of loss. She admitted she sometimes felt like I was keeping her at arm's length, like I'd come out but hadn't fully let her in. I want all of you, she said, not just the parts you think are acceptable. I want the mess and the fear and the control issues. I want to work through things with you, not watch you try to handle everything alone. I'm working on it, I said. I promise I'm working on it. I know you are. Just keep working, keep showing up, keep being honest with me. We made love that night differently than we had before, lower, more intentional. She took her time, and when I started to rush, to try to control the pace, she stopped. Maya, she said, holding my face, let go, just feel. Stop trying to manage every moment. So I did. I let her lead, let myself be vulnerable, let the sensations wash over me without trying to control them. And when I finally came apart in her arms, it felt like freedom. After that fight, things shifted. I made a conscious effort to communicate better, to ask rather than assume, to consider us as a unit. It wasn't always easy. Old habits died hard, but I was trying. In May, Sloan was offered a position at a nonprofit legal organization. The pay was significantly less than what she made at our firm, but the work was exactly what she was passionate about, helping low-income families with housing issues. I'm thinking about taking it, she told me one evening. My immediate instinct was to list all the reasons it was a bad career move: the pay cut, the loss of prestige, the impact on her future earning potential. But I caught myself. What do you want to do? I asked instead. Honestly, I want to take it. The work at our firm is fine, but it's not what lights me up. This position would let me actually help people who need it, not just protect corporate interests. Then you should take it. She looked surprised. You're not going to try to talk me out of it. 6 months ago, I would have given you a whole presentation on why it was impractical. But this isn't about what makes sense on paper. It's about what makes you happy. And I want you to be happy. She kissed me deep and thorough. I love you, she said. It was the first time either of us had said it out loud. The words hung in the air between us, precious and terrifying. I love you too, I said, and it felt like the truest thing I'd ever said. She took the job at the nonprofit. I stayed at the firm but started being more selective about which cases I took on. I even volunteered to do some pro bono work with Sloan's organization, which surprised everyone including myself. My parents still weren't speaking to me, but in June, my younger brother reached out. Mom and Dad are being idiots, he said over coffee. I wanted you to know that I support you. And I like Sloan, she's good for you. You've met Sloan? I asked, surprised. Yeah. I looked her up on social media, did some research. She seems cool, way more interesting than boring James. I laughed, grateful for his support even if it didn't fix the larger family situation. Do you think they'll ever come around? I asked. He shrugged. Maybe. Dad is stubborn, but Mom. I think she's scared. She built this whole vision of your life, and now it looks different. Give her time. Time. It seemed like everyone was asking me to be patient, to wait, to give people space to adjust. But I was tired of waiting. I'd waited 28 years to be myself. How much more waiting was I supposed to do? In July, something happened that changed everything. I was working late at the office when I got a call from an unknown number. Maya, it's your Aunt Linda, my father's sister, who I hadn't spoken to in months. Hi, I said cautiously. I'm calling about your mother. She's in the hospital. My heart stopped. What happened? She had a heart attack, a mild one, but scary enough. Your father is with her now. I thought you should know. I was on a plane to California the next morning. Sloan wanted to come with me, but I asked her to stay. I didn't know what I'd be walking into, and I didn't want to subject her to potential hostility from my parents. When I arrived at the hospital, my father was in the waiting room. He looked older than I remembered, worn down by worry. Dad, I said. He looked up, and for a moment, I saw something crack in his expression. Maya, you came. Of course I came. She's my mother. He nodded, and we sat in silence for a few minutes. They're saying she'd be okay, he finally said, but she needs to make some lifestyle changes. Less stress. The implication was clear. I was the stress. Dad, I never wanted to hurt you or Mom. I just needed to be honest about who I am. I know, he said, and his voice was heavy. Your mother and I, we had certain expectations. We built our entire lives around giving you opportunities. And when you told us you were, double quotes, he couldn't say the word, gay, I finished for him. I'm gay, Dad. I'm in love with a woman named Sloan, and she makes me happier than I've ever been in my life. He was quiet for a long time. Then, are you happy? Truly, yes, I said. For the first time in my life, I'm actually happy. Your mother worries you're making your life harder than it needs to be. Maybe I am, but it's my life, and living inauthentically was harder than any discrimination I might face for being who I am. He nodded slowly, processing. Can I meet her? This woman who makes you happy. The question surprised me so much I couldn't speak for a moment. You want to meet Sloan? If we're going to be part of your life, we should know the people in your life. Your mother might need more time, but I'm willing to try. I started crying right there in the hospital waiting room, and my father, who had never been comfortable with displays of emotion, awkwardly patted my shoulder. My mother was stable, and when I finally saw her, she was weak but alert. She didn't say much, but she held my hand, and that felt like a start. I stayed in California for 3 days. Sloan called every night, and I'd step outside the hospital to talk to her, telling her about small breakthroughs and frustrating setbacks. Your dad wants to meet you, I told her on the second night. How do you feel about that? Terrified, hopeful. Is that possible? Completely possible, she said. Maya, whatever happens with your parents, I'm proud of you. You showed up. That took courage. I miss you, I said. I miss you too. Come home soon. When I flew back to New York, Sloan was waiting at my apartment with Thai food and a willingness to listen to me process everything. My dad wants to meet you, I said. I told him maybe in a few months, after my mom is stronger. Give everyone time to adjust. Whatever timeline works for you, she said. I'm not going anywhere. In August, we rented a house in the Hamptons for a long weekend. It was just the two of us. No work, no family drama, no external pressures. On our first night there, we sat on the beach and watched the sunset. Sloan had her head on my shoulder, and I was playing with her hair, and everything felt perfect. Can I tell you something? I said. Always. I used to think love meant giving up parts of yourself, that to be with someone, you had to compromise who you were to fit into their life. But being with you, you've never asked me to be anything other than myself. Even when you push me to grow, you're not trying to change who I fundamentally am. You're just helping me become the best version of myself. She turned to look at me. You do the same for me. You know, you challenge me to think more strategically, to consider long-term implications. You balance my idealism with practicality. We make each other better. I never believed in soulmates, I said. I thought it was romantic nonsense, but now I think maybe soulmates aren't people who are perfect for each other. They're people who are willing to do the work together, to grow together, to choose each other, even when it's hard. Is this your way of saying you're stuck with me? She teased. This is my way of saying, I don't want to imagine my life without you. She kissed me as the sun set behind us, and later, back at the house, we made love with all the windows open, the sound of the ocean mixing with our breathing. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets, I felt more at peace than I'd ever felt in my life. Thank you, I said. For what? For being patient with me, for pushing me when I needed to be pushed, for seeing me even when I was hiding, for making me beg for what I wanted. She laughed. When did you beg? Every time I was too scared to ask for what I needed, and you made me say it out loud. Every time you refused to let me hide. You made me beg to be seen, to be known, to be loved. And I've never felt more alive than I do when I'm with you. You know what I think? She said, propping herself up on one elbow to look at me. I think you've been alive this whole time. You were just living in a cage you built. I didn't make you bug, I just helped you realize the cage door was never locked. You could have walked out any time. But I wouldn't have without you. Maybe not. Or maybe you would have eventually. But I'm glad I got to be here for it. I'm glad I get to see who you become. In September, my parents came to New York. My mother was doing better, and my father had convinced her that meeting Sloan was important. I was terrified, but Sloan was calm. They're going to love me, she said confidently as we prepared dinner. How can you be so sure? Because I love their daughter, and that makes me automatically lovable. I laughed despite my nerves. When my parents arrived, the initial greeting was awkward. My mother looked uncomfortable, and my father was overly formal. But Sloan, to her credit, was warm without being pushy. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, it's so nice to finally meet you. Maya talks about you all the time. We sat down to dinner, and conversation was stilted at first. But then my mother asked Sloan about her work, and Sloan lit up talking about the families she was helping. I watched my mother's expression shift as she listened, still reserved, but less hostile. You're very passionate about your work, my mother observed. I am, Sloan agreed. I think Maya gets that the drive to do work that matters. She's brilliant in court. You know, I've watched her completely dismantle opposing counsel with her arguments. You should be very proud of her. My mother looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since I'd come out. We are proud, she said quietly. We've always been proud. We had certain ideas about what your life would look like. I know, I said, but this is what my life looks like now, and I'm happy, Mom. Genuinely happy. I can see that, she said, and her voice was softer than I'd heard it in months. The evening wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, topics carefully avoided, but it was a start. When my parents left, my father pulled me aside. She's good for you, he said. I can see that. Your mother will come round. She just needs time. Thank you, Dad, for trying. You're our daughter. We love you, even when we don't understand you. After they left, I collapsed on the couch, emotionally exhausted. Sloan sat down next to me and pulled me against her. That went well, she said. You think so? I know so. Your mom smiled at one of my jokes. That's huge. She did, didn't she? Progress, not perfection, Sloan said, kissing the top of my head. It's October again, and I'm standing in Sloan's apartment, our apartment now, since I moved in 3 months ago. We're getting ready for the firm's annual celebration dinner, and I'm helping her with the zipper on her dress. Remember last year? She asks, catching my eye in the mirror, when you could barely look at me at this thing. I was terrified, I admit. Terrified of what I was feeling, terrified of what it meant. And now I'm just terrified you're going to get hit on all night, and I'll have to stake my claim repeatedly. She laughs and turns in my arms. You know what I love about us. What? A year ago, you couldn't even admit you were attracted to women. Now you're confidently territorial in public. Look at you, growing. You've created a monster. I tease, the best kind of monster. My mother and I talk once a week now. The conversations are still sometimes awkward, but they're getting easier. She's even asked about Sloan a few times, which feels like progress. My father sends articles he thinks I'll find interesting, his way of staying connected. At work, I'm being considered for partner, and I no longer feel like I have to hide who I am to get there. Sloan's work at the nonprofit is flourishing, and watching her passion for it makes me love her even more. Ready? She asks, grabbing her purse. Ready? I say, as we walk to the elevator. She takes my hand, and I don't hesitate. I don't look around to see who might notice. I don't calculate the potential professional implications. I just hold her hand because I want to. At the dinner, when someone makes a comment about us being a cute couple, I don't deflect or downplay it. I just say, thank you, and squeeze Sloane's hand under the table. Later, when we're back home, getting ready for bed, I watch her in the bathroom mirror as she takes off her makeup. What? She asks, catching me staring. I'm just thinking about how different my life is now. A year ago, I was so afraid of being seen, and now, I gesture between us. Now being seen by you is the best part of my day. She turns to face me. You know what your problem was. What you thought being vulnerable meant being weak, but the truth is, letting me see you, all of you, that took more strength than anything else you've ever done. You didn't just come out, you let yourself be loved. That's the bravest thing I've ever witnessed. I couldn't have done it without you. Maybe not, but you did it. You chose yourself. You chose happiness. You chose love, even when it was terrifying. I pull her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. Best decision I ever made. Even better than going to Harvard Law, she teases. Way better than Harvard Law. We climb into bed, and she curls up against me, her head on my chest. In the quiet darkness, I think about the woman I was a year ago, so controlled, so afraid, so determined to be perfect. I think about how Sloan saw through all of that, saw the person I could be if I just had the courage to try. Sloan, Amy, thank you for making me beg. She lifts her head to look at me, confused. What? For what I wanted, for who I was, for this life. You never just gave it to me. You made me fight for it. Admit I wanted it. Be brave enough to claim it. And that made all the difference. She's quiet for a moment, then says, you know what? You're welcome. Because watching you fight for yourself, watching you become this version of Maya, who's confident and happy and unapologetically in love, that's been the privilege of my life. I kiss her then, deep and slow, and I think about how a year ago I couldn't have imagined this, couldn't have imagined feeling this free, this loved, this alive. I love you, I say when we break apart. I love you too, she replies. Always have, always will. As I drift off to sleep, Sloan's breathing evening out beside me, I feel something I've never felt before. Complete. Not perfect. I'm still working on my control issues, still learning to communicate better, still navigating the complicated relationship with my parents, but complete in the sense that I'm finally living my truth with someone who sees me and loves me exactly as I am. The cage door is open, and I'm finally, fully free, and I've never felt more alive.